So, a little bit about us and the company. We are a virtual design assistant company and we are a team of six. We offer support in things like drawings, renderings, marketing, and Dubsado. Uh, we've worked in Dubsado for the past 4 years and have set up countless designers. And it was really kind of an organic start because I was doing it for myself and my own business. And then a designer came to me and said, a current client said to me, would Dubsado be able to work for designers as well? And I was like, you know what? Why not? So we kind of trial ran it together and it's just evolved from there. As Dubsado isn't designed for interior designers, but for creatives. And we've been able to harness its power and use it in the interior design industry. So that's pretty cool. What we will learn today: why systems are important, what Dubsado can do, steps to setting up Dubsado, the client experience process for interior designers, and a little bit about how our setups work. Okay, so I think like intrinsically we know the value of systems, but I just wanted to touch on it briefly to kind of set a foundation for this webinar. Uh, Systems are essentially repeatable processes, right? Um, and part of having a system is knowing and documenting where you put and find the information. An example of this would be I put all of my vendor information into a spreadsheet or into Studio Designer, or I have a Google Doc for all of our regularly used emails. Knowing where you find that information uh, and where you put that information, like it saves a lot of time and frustration, right? So that's part of the idea of Dubsado is knowing where and where to find that information. Okay, so we're going to jump right into what can you do with Dubsado? What can it help you with? So a lot of our designers come to us because they are still using DocuSign, um, and it can be a bit cumbersome. So one of the things that I love is that Dubsado has digital contracts. We create all the contracts and proposals in Dubsado, and they can be signed and time stamped there. And we're going to get into some examples of proposals on the couple pages from here, so you'll be able to see what they look like. Questionnaires. Again, a lot of designers are still using Google Forms, and we really want to elevate that client experience and make it look more professional. So you can recreate your questionnaires in Dubsado, and it's interactive, so they can fill in long form, short form, yes or no kinds of questions right there, and you're able to find it within their client project. Templated emails. Again, so maybe your emails are currently not templated at all and you're writing a new email every time, or maybe you have emails in a Google Doc that you copy and paste. The idea is that you have all of these in Dubsado so that you can access them at any time, whether they are part of a workflow or you grab them separately. That's where you keep all of your regularly used emails. Client portal. So kind of like what it sounds like, client can access their portal, and what they can see is any of the email communication, any documents that have been signed or need to be signed or need to be viewed or answered. You can add links to that portal. So say you have presented your initial designs, you can have that living in the portal so they can access it. Um, we can also put the link to, say, your studio designer portal in the Dubsado portal so they would have like one landing place to access all the things. Um, what else is in that portal? Oh, any invoices that need to be paid, and they can view anything that they are going to, or like meeting wise, any upcoming meetings that they have scheduled with you. So that takes us into the next one. You can schedule meetings and calls in Dubsado. It can connect to Zoom, it can connect to Google Meet. There's a couple other ones. But what's great is that it will also automatically populate your meeting call link. So if you're doing your initial call on Zoom, that will automatically populate and it will send out through the email. So it makes things super streamlined on the back end. Also, in using Dubsado Scheduler means that you will be using and getting automatic confirmation and reminder emails, so you're not having to think about that on the fly. It's taken care of for you. You can create queued events, and what I mean by that is you can create your ideal process and flow in Dubsado by using a workflow, and we'll get into that later. But essentially, you can see what's going to happen next, and you can tell Dubsado when to make those steps happen. The contact form. So, you have a normal contact form on your website. The most efficient way to do this is to recreate that contact form in Dubsado, and you embed it into your website to replace your current contact form. And what that does is when they fill it out, they are immediately brought into the Dubsado platform, and it can trigger that workflow and begin the next steps, such as, thanks for reaching out. Here's a link to book a discovery call, or here's some more information about us. And let's see, invoicing. You can invoice through Dubsado. Typically, I see it done for your consultations if you have a paid consultation, because what's really great is that you can connect the payment to the scheduler and they cannot book that call without paying that fee. So you're not having to chase down that extra money. And you could also do your design fees through Dubsado. What you should not do through Dubsado is any of your procurement fees. That needs to all be done in a different bookkeeping system. And then also you can send presentations and receive presentation feedback. So this is something that we've kind of come across as we've worked with designers more, is again creating this fully cohesive experience for your clients. And some designers choose to get feedback on presentations and a signature after they've been presented. And so what we've decided we could create in Dubsado is a form where it might house your presentation, and it would have questions that they can answer regarding that presentation. And it could also have a signature field or like an initial field if you so desired. So that's something that we've kind of teased out. It can be a little bit cumbersome, so it's kind of on a person by person basis on how we make that happen. And then it's fully customizable to your own brand. So you're not seeing any of Dubsado's interface. You can white label the link so that it looks like it's coming from your website. Um, has all of your logos and everything is very on brand and can be very pretty. So I know you designers love the pretty aspect of things, and so I think you can really put a really strong foot forward with that kind of personalization. Okay, so one of the questions that I get before we continue on is how is Dubsado different from Asana or a Studio Designer? They all serve different purposes. Um, and there's going to be some overlap because, as we know, there isn't any platform that does things perfectly. So um, you kind of got to lean into what the platforms have been designed for and use their features that are strongest. So Asana is a project management and task organization platform. It's best for managing teams and tasks and timelines and deadlines, to-do lists, due dates, etc. So project management as a whole. Then there is Studio Designer, which is much more about the design portion of the project. You're managing your vendors, your purchase orders, your billing, all of that. And then Dubsado is the client facing part of it. So um, it's the client experience that Dubsado is um, managing and optimizing. So back to this, the value of Dubsado. Now we're not just value of systems, but Dubsado. Everything is organized. The things that you regularly use, emails, documents, your process, it's all there in Dubsado, ready for you to uh, grab or trigger if it's um, in your workflows. So it really gives an elevated and professional experience for all interested clients. Um, and I believe that your client experience should mirror the quality of your designs. Um, and so Dubsado allows you to really think about your process and fine tune it and get it to be the best that it can be. And then you don't have to really dig into it every time, right? You know how you're going to show up every time and you know that it's going to be on point rather than recreating the wheel with every client that comes through the door. Okay, so I wanted to give you some examples of forms that we can create in Dubsado. These are some past clients. And so just again, just visually, just wanted you to understand the gamut of what we can create here. And it can be a combination of images that we've done in Canva that we've put into Dubsado, and also Dubsado's innate form capabilities. We can also do coding if that's desirable to you, but these are all created without code, so that gives you an idea of what we can do. Again, it's very website looking, and it can be very pretty. Okay, so we're going to go straight into how would we set up Dubsado if you were doing this for yourself. Because a lot of people are like, well, I think I can figure it out. Maybe I'm not fully committed to it yet. Whatever it may be, I want to give you the tools to be able to start. So the most top priority that you must start with is your process. You've got to have an understanding of the steps that you take your client through, and you're not going to be able to know what to put in Dubsado without first knowing what those steps are. And we're going to cover those in a few slides ahead, but that's where is your client coming through the door? Are they coming through Instagram? Are they coming through call or a website? Um, are you giving them a investment guide right off the bat, or are you qualifying their leads first before you jump on a call with them? Are you sending them a payment, asking for payment with the consultation or not? Uh, are you doing a questionnaire before the consultation, or is the design questionnaire coming after they've signed the contract? Like those things you've got to think about and put on paper or on a note, whatever, but like line it out so that you can clearly see the different steps that you take your client through. The next thing that I would say is start just putting into Dubsado what you already have. So if you have a handful of emails that you're already sending, get those into Dubsado. If you have a questionnaire that you use in Google Forms, build it in Dubsado so that it's there and you can grab it as needed. You're going to begin to realize that there's going to be holes that you want to have created, but you haven't created yet. So say again with that questionnaire, you may have the questionnaire questions, but you don't have the email that would send it out. So you need to create that content and put that into Dubsado. Okay, so customize. Again, you could just put all the questions into Dubsado, into that questionnaire, and not worry about looking pretty yet. You could just say functionally, it's going to work. I'm going to start there. And then you can begin to fiddle with the different form features and figure out how to add images and change the font and change the colors and like begin to really make it pretty. But the first step is just getting everything that you've created into Dubsado first, then customize it. Next would be to set up a scheduler, because this is something that will save you a lot of time, get you out of your email and that whole back and forth. So if you set up a scheduler, get those things rolling, then that scheduler will send you the confirmation email, or your client the confirmation email and the reminder email. So that's something that you don't have to think about. And you can quickly just send them the link and say, hey, can you please schedule a call? And finally, would be building out the workflows. So this is like the highest level of Dubsado is creating the automation that is available to you. But you can't do that without having all the pieces in there first. So that's what I would leave with you there. There are a ton of videos and like YouTube videos that can help you understand the workflows and the different triggers and all that. I learned by trial and error initially. So that was fun, but I also learned like all the different nuances of the program. So it takes time. All right. So you might say, okay, what is my process? I don't really know what the ideal customer or a client experience is. So I wanted to kind of break that down for you just a little bit. So contact form, that is built in Dubsado. It's embedded in your website. Client fills it out, and that brings them into Dubsado. Then using the workflow, an email is sent, and in that email would have the investment guide and the scheduler link. Some clients choose to have it pause between step 1 and step 2 so that they can qualify that lead before sending it out. It's really up to you and your priorities. And whether or not you want them to just initially book that call or save your time and only book with those you know for sure you want to continue to explore with. Next would be to send the scheduler to schedule your consultation, and you would have the invoice attached to that, so they would schedule and pay. Next would be sending your contract, and again, this is broad. This is not how every client does it. There could be some steps in between the consultation and the contract. But you would have the contract in Dubsado that you could send, even if you had previously presented it in person. You can send it digitally there. And then in response to them signing and paying, they would get an email with a welcome guide, maybe an introduction to their portal so they know where to access information from you, and a link to book the kickoff meeting. And then in response to them booking that kickoff meeting, you would send them their homework, which is usually the design questionnaire. So that's kind of cool. You could connect it directly to that kickoff meeting scheduler, but because of the length of the design questionnaires, typically, we usually choose to keep them separate. And then, there's a lot of steps that happen outside of Dubsado, but you could send the concepts through Dubsado, maybe in a form like we talked about earlier, having that interactive feedback, and you'll know where to find that information, which would be in their client project in Dubsado. And again, just a very elevated professional experience with them. And then from there, it really depends on the designer and how you want to use Dubsado. I typically see Dubsado being used more in the onboarding and in the offboarding, and less in the middle, just because there's less that can be templated and repeated, right? It's so nuanced, as you know. So it's harder to build a workflow for that. But of course, you could have emails that you regularly send that could be in Dubsado. And you could use it for the scheduler. Okay, so I want you to set your business up for success for the months and years ahead. And that includes some kind of time investment, perhaps money investment. You're not going to be just an immediate, yes, I've arrived kind of moment, right? You're going to see the fruit of using Dubsado the more and more you get into it. So just know that ahead of time. A bit about how we work. We start with a process mapping call. We want to understand all of your client experience and how it relates to Dubsado. Then we ask you to compile all of that content. We also have templates for your investment guide, your welcome guide. We also work with a copywriter. So if you're heck no, I do not want to touch those things, we could work with the copywriter to get that content completed. And then we take about 2 weeks to design and build your setup. And then we have the support phase. So we have some recorded videos, we have live walkthrough videos with you, and we also have a library of videos at your fingertips. And then you also have email support. So all of that, we want to make sure that you are good and ready if you decide to use Dubsado going forward. Okay. And that is it. We breezed through that. Do you guys have any questions? I had a few people reach out initially asking some questions. So I'm going to go ahead and pull those up and that can get us started. But if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat and I'll get to those. Okay, so back to just the slide before our setup process. How much does it cost to set it up? The process mapping call is $450. And then that is applied towards the total setup cost, which is $34.50. So that's the all-in setup cost, and we do it in 2 payments. So that's that. Someone asked, is there a way to automate or link the inquiry form on my website to Dubsado? Yes, in the previous, what we talked about earlier, having the contact form created in Dubsado and embedded into your website will allow you to automate that step and bring them into Dubsado. Another question, do I have to have pretty client packets before I set up Dubsado, or just the process and verbiage laid out? So I would say don't go to the extra effort of creating, a pretty proposal or a pretty questionnaire beforehand. What I would want you to do is have your investment guide and your welcome guide, excuse me, those to be created so that we can then link them in your workflow. But initially, to start out with us, you just need the process, and we will help you kind of hone in on the exact details after that. What else? How do I make the Dubsado lead capture look on brand for my website? Now this one would use code. So you would need to find, probably do some Google searching. If not, you can reach out to me as well to find code that will change the font and the colors and everything to make it look on brand. So yeah. What else? Yeah, that's about it. Okay. Well, thank you for joining me. This is going to be recorded, or is recorded, and it's going to be sent to you on replay. And I also have a Dubsado workbook that I will be sending out with the replay link that has a checklist for you to kind of understand better what all is involved in setting up your Dubsado. Thank you, ladies. Have a good rest of your day.